Solveig Mayer, Director Corporate and Government Affairs at Expedia Group. Expedia Group is a global online travel business, and Verbo is our short-term rental business, part of the Expedia Group family. Short-term rentals, or STR as we like to call them, are an increasingly important part of the economy sector and of the tourism sector especially. They represent nearly 1/4 of the total EU supply of tourist accommodation, and this has been boosted by the emergence of online platforms. Not only they represent an additional source of income for citizens, but they also contribute to the economic growth of local communities and help promote alternative and sustainable forms of tourism, including by spreading tourism outside of urban areas and more generally distributing tourism flows. This has been the case especially during the pandemic, when STRs contributed to shifting tourism demand and flows from hotspots to less well-known rural destinations and communities. However, the sector currently faces a number of regulatory challenges across the EU, including a high degree of legislative fragmentation among and within member states, for instance, on registration schemes, taxes, nightclubs, etc., including disproportionate data requests and a lack of legal clarity on provisions related to professional and peer service providers. In addition, member states often approve and enforce national laws which do not comply with EU legislation on e-commerce. Let me be clear that Expedia Group does support a simple, automated and online registration scheme and advocates for them to help monitor and regulate the market for STR properties. We have long been calling for an EU-wide initiative on STR addressing the regulatory fragmentation in Europe. We therefore strongly welcome the European Commission's proposal for a regulation on data collection and sharing relating to the STR services, which aims to make data sharing between platforms and authorities more efficient and provide the industry with much needed clarity. We are fully in favour of maximum harmonisation of rules for registration schemes and data sharing requirements concerning online STR platforms across the EU. We would thus ask the Irish Government to engage with the EU proposal and align this bill, the general scheme, with its provisions. We appreciate the desire to move swiftly to implement the Irish registration scheme, so we would encourage Ireland to position itself as a pilot country for the EU proposal, helping to shape the approach that will be taken across the EU. We would be more than delighted to work with the Irish Government on such an approach. We have significant concerns with the general scheme, the bill as it stands. The fact that it seeks to create obligations for intermediary services in respect of all visitor accommodation types rather than just STRs, and its interaction with existing and upcoming EU law. 2 points on that more specifically. Firstly, the requirement to pre-verify registration numbers and proactively remove listings requires intermediary services to assess whether registration numbers on each listing are valid, reliable and complete, and to remove non-compliant listings. Where simple online registration schemes for short-term rental owners are implemented, online platforms are able to help inform STR providers of their obligation, display registration numbers and respond to delisting requests. That said, it is crucial that platforms are not required to proactively check the legality of a registration number or to proactively delist accommodation listings on the assumption that they could be illegal. To do so is in contravention of the hosting defence as recognised in the E-commerce Directive and confirmed by the Digital Services Act and also in EU case law. Secondly, while the bill primarily creates a new register for short-term tourist lets, the effect to place a legal obligation on all visitor accommodation providers defined under the Tourist Traffic Acts to display a valid registration number on their online listing. It also creates a duty for intermediary services to ensure this number is displayed for each property, check its validity and remove any properties that are found to be non-compliant. Imposing the same requirements on all visitor accommodation providers is a very significant extension of work outside the area of STTL. Traditional visitor accommodation is almost always operated as business and is therefore already registered under the Tourist Traffic Act and visible to the Irish Government. It is not clear what additional benefits there are of having intermediary services require and display registration and minimum night information for these properties. We would therefore ask the Irish Government to limit the scope of the bill to STTL properties. So let me stress again, Expedia Group supports the introduction of a simple online registration system, and we stand ready to help the government create such a scheme in Ireland. However, the proposal now before the Oireachtas is complex, burdensome and incompatible with existing and upcoming EU law. We would urge the Joint Committee to ask the government to correct these issues and to enable a more sustainable approach to short-term tourism letting regulation to be created. Thank